on display at like the city hall or the library, and everything was on display, and that really rubbed all of us wrong. We weren't interested in creating relics of a past that was dead. We wanted to build the living thing like it had always been alive for 10,000, 9,000 plus years. And so that's why I started with my group of youth. I started a kayak club, and then everyone started owning their own Iqyax. And so they could go out when they wanted to and not have to get, not have to get permission from whatever entity owned it, but really it was get denied permission, right? Because of liability. So I'm really happy to have been part of getting those, in a real way into people's hands out there and getting them on the water. So that's sort of been a goal that I share, I think, with most of the Unangax people, is that, make it real, get people on the water, because that's where they're going to really understand what it's all about. And anyway, that's sort of my origin of how I got started in this whole movement. And I look at it, what I see is that this was a moment that was going to happen anyway, and I'm just really grateful that I got to be present to help with that. And anyway, feel free to jump in with any questions at any time, okay? And just raise your hand and I'll call on you. So for 30 years, there's been this movement throughout the region. Every little village has been sort of stockpiling a little fleet of these Iqyan and Aleutians. And there have been 3 times I've gone on the intertribal canoe journeys down in Washington State, and mostly with the St. Paul folks. And does anybody here know what that is? Tribal journeys? Yeah. It's a part of their culture where, and we're talking about the Salish, the cedar canoe folks, and the indigenous groups from all over the planet converge for this journey. And usually there's a host tribe. It's kind of like the Olympics. There's a tribe will host a particular year's tribal journey, and they will invite all of the other tribes to make their way by canoe to their land. And like I said, people, canoes come from New Zealand, the Maori, Hawaii, Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian canoes. I mean, that's how far they come. I don't think the Pacific Islanders paddle all the way from out there, but it's a really beautiful event. And what I found, like by the time we went on our first tribal journey, it was paddled to Elwha, the lower Elwha Clallam tribe, on the Olympic Peninsula. We didn't know what tribal journeys was, and we just thought it was like a paddling trip or something like that. You just don't know till you get there. But what happened is that you spend about a week and a half on the water, and it's scary sometimes. It's like you're really traveling, and there are support vessels there, but they're not right there with you, and so it really puts you through a lot. And my young Unangax students they'd never been out paddling. The first thing they had to do was learn how to actually be in the water with a PFD on, the life vest. I mean, that's how, in the Pribilofs you don't swim for pleasure, And anyway, so that was a big breakthrough. And the reason I bring it up is that when we've been struggling for 10 years, trying to find funding, trying to rally everybody and do the work. There was a lot to learn back then. And when we landed at the final arrival on Tribal Journeys, our group had traveled the farthest, and so we were sort of honored by, they made us go first on the landing procession. So away we went. I think we had 5 or 6 Iqyan and Aleutian, and we're paddling, and there's a trail of canoes launching behind us. We can't see them, but by the time we landed at Hollywood Beach there in Port Angeles, and all of the every group had its group of people drumming them in, singing them in, and it was just like took your breath away. There were thousands of people, right, waiting, and we pulled up, and you don't just pull up and get out. You pull up to the beach and you wait, because you have to be welcomed ashore, and you have to state your intentions that you're coming in a good way. Can you have permission to come ashore? But you wait until all the vessels land, and there were 81 canoes. And what happened, like I actually kind of choke a little bit when I remember that moment. But because it had been so hard up till then. Like, it was such a struggle, and we were just doing it out of our own pockets, and against all the odds, just fighting this fight. And seeing those 81 canoes from all over the world doing the same thing, it just hit me that it's not just us, right? We were part of something really big and really positive. And anyway, I love it so much. My dream, we're looking at 2025, we're trying to get another group together to go do that, because Elwa's hosting again. So, anyway, since that time, I've kind of shifted into, seems like there's a lot more energy and recognition of the importance of keeping our programs going. I work a lot with APIA, I work with the Kawalungan tribe, I work with, the various tribes throughout the region, and I get to go to a lot of culture camps, and usually we'll build a vessel at the culture camp. Sometimes it'll just be a program that isn't based around a culture camp. We'll just go up and build a vessel to get another vessel in the community. And what I found, like I said, I've been doing this for 31 years, and when I started, my hair was dark brown, and 15 years in, 20 years in, I started thinking, I'm scouting for, my goal is to make myself as a teacher obsolete. I want a team of young teachers to emerge, and it's working, but I finally realized at one point that I needed to really force the issue, and kind of the older I get, the more I'm going to really force it. But I started, with my family, I founded a little nonprofit called Make Access Apprenticeships. And through that, I'm able to receive funding from the Ali Foundation when I'm taking on students. And what the idea is that I can't go everywhere, but what I can do is in the winter, usually, I will bring 1 or 2 promising students into my shop, into my home, and take care of them for a month and a half. And during that time, we'll build an Iqyax together. And then immediately put that aside, start another one, and the student then has to do most everything, but I'm helping. And then on the third one, they're on their own unless they call on me. And then the other part of the obligation is they're supposed to go back to their home village and lead a build. So that's the ideal. It's happened several times that way, and there are some really promising young apprentices that I think are about ready. They don't agree, but it's coming. So that's where a lot of these photos are off of. They're off of my Facebook page that I keep for that Make Access program. So if you ever want to check it out, it's just go on Facebook and look up Make Access, and you can scroll back and 10 years or whatever, whenever it was that I started Facebook. And anyway, yeah, so next, I think the next fun, important thing that has happened in this whole movement, we spent years making the Iqyan and the Aleutian, right? And the Iqyax being the single hole and the Aleutian being the 2 and 3 hole kayaks, right? But what we were always talking about from the very earliest days were these Niqalan, the big open skin boats. And we were always talking about, yeah, when are we going to do that? I mean, everywhere I went, everyone was talking about that. And I always was trying to get that going, but it's an expensive undertaking, right? They're way bigger, there's a lot of material, a lot of time that it takes. And so it was I think it was just 2 years ago. It's kind of a blur for me, but might have been 2.5 years ago, we started building one here and started gathering up the materials for it, and got into it at camp. Didn't get too far, but we did start one. And in the meantime, through my Make Access program, I had applied for a California Arts Council grant to build one in my shop down in California, in the North Coast. And the idea of that vessel was that there are a lot of displaced Unangax people in California from 200 years ago during the otter hunt. They were taken down to Fort Ross. So a lot of those people are still there. So that was sort of my gift to those people for when they do get together at Fort Ross. And so that's sitting down in my barn right now. But what that did, I think, it got a lot of people that had been on the fence over the years out here, it kind of put a fire under them. They saw this thing happening elsewhere, and then I started hearing from different tribal leaders, and they're saying, well we want one here, and so I think that was a real good, a good little nudge for everybody. And at this point, since that first one 2.5 years ago, that was at the Cook Inlet Native Head Start. Ethan Pettigrew in Anchorage instigated that one. And so since then, we've built one at Anchorage, my shop, Sandpoint, Atka, King Cove, and now here. So six of those in 2 years. So it's been a really steep learning curve. We've learned a lot along the way that you can only learn by building them and using them. And the reason it was difficult to learn is not like you could go to a museum and look at these things. There was a rebellion at some point in the late 1700s where the Russian fur company was here and using the Unangax people as hunters, and they needed to dominate them. And with these big open skin boats, the Unangax people could say, hey, we don't like this, and they could pile in and leave. And so as a response to that rebellion, the Russian fur operation ordered all of the Unangax boats to be torched, destroyed. And so there's no physical evidence to look at. All that managed to happen in that short little period of contact time is that there were a handful of drawings made, most of them really rough and not dependable. There's one drawing off of a German expedition that was drawn by a naval architect in, I think, 1802 or something like that. And it's got a lot of details in it, thank goodness. You know, so we relied on that a lot. And another really interesting tidbit as far as, you know, physical evidence of these. I think it was Ginny and Kale were talking to me at one point. There's in their back room at the Museum of the Aleutians. There are the drawers of parts, and they said, well, as a builder, can you help identify what some of these Iqyax parts are? And I said, oh, that sounds great. So I went in and I was looking at them, and you know, most of it's pretty obvious, and what they are, and I could tell which parts go with which other parts. But then there were these two pieces in there, and I just kept looking at them, these wooden pieces, and I'm just saying, these are just not part of a kayak. You know, I don't know what they are, but they were shaped. You know, the woodworking on them was similar. It had edges were smooth. There were lashing holes, that sort of thing. The little bottom of them were kind of a crook, and then it dawned on me, like I just all of a sudden I knew exactly what they were. They were two ribs from an Iqyax, and they were collected in 1933, I think, by William Laughlin in Cagamil Burial Cave, in the Islands of the Four Mountains, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and they were over, are they 1,500 years dated? What are they? They're old.
The dates in that cave, I think, range from like 500 to about 1,500
Yeah.
years old.
So pre-contact for sure, right? And that's how these pieces survived that mass destruction of the vessels. And as far as I can tell, those are the only two, those might be the only two pieces of actual original Iqyax on the planet. Unless, do you know of any, Jenny?
We have a collection that we'll be bringing in, that we have it here, but we have to do condition reporting and then give an accession, and those have boat parts.
Oh, good.
It may be you who tells us what kind of boat.
Good. Yeah, call me. Anyway, another really fun part of that story is on the way to Atka. Okay, so we had already built one Iqyax in Anchorage and one at my shop, and then I was on my way through here to go to Atka to build the third, and so I stopped at the museum, and you guys let me very carefully lay those parts on a piece of paper and very carefully trace them, turn them every way, trace it, mark all the holes, and I still have that piece of paper. I took that with me to Atka. And so we're building this 26-foot Iqyax, and it comes time to make the kilgeen, the ribs. And so I get out the paper. I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to get my head in the right space here. I'm going to recreate these pieces exactly. And so I just took my time and I did that. And so then I'm sitting there holding this thing, and I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I just held last week back in Unalaska. And then I'm looking over at the half-finished vessel over there, and I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be funny, right? And so I walked over and I started testing it in the different locations. And right about midship, it just slid in, and it just stopped at the right spot and fit. And it was really stunning. And we left it in. We actually wood burned the origin of it and the museum catalog number, and left them in. And but to me, it was like a nod of approval from the past. Like it was saying, you know, you don't have a lot to go off of, but you're on the right track. And it felt just profoundly yeah, I can't thank the museum enough for that kind of resource. You know, every time I come in and I want to look at some part again, you take your time and you let me go do that, and it's huge, because there are secrets locked up in those parts, and you get questions as you build, and you need to go back and you'll see something you didn't see before because now you have a different question. So, very valuable, very super important part of the whole thing. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I just had a question, Mark. Up in St. Paul in, I don't know, it was the mid-90s, I think, when I think it was the first Aleut elders gathering, and there were Aleuts, that's what everyone called them at the time. They hadn't really started referring back to the original history, historic names and so forth, but we had elders that went from here up to St. Paul and also from Atka and King Cove and Sandpoint and other places. And there were some open boats that were in St. Paul, I believe at that time, that they were maybe not from that area, but they were there and they were working on restoring. But I don't know if you were involved in that.
Totally, yeah, that's great. Yeah, glad you brought it up. That's my shop in down in Ferndale, California. It's that's when the students come down to stay with us, that's where they stay. So, but yeah, back to that. They call them bidars out there.
Right.
And what they are, they were originally they were built by the Russian America company with the use of Unangax labor to build them, and they're more based on a Kamchatkan open skin boat, because that's where they came from, and they look like, they're kind of like big bathtubs,
Right.
and they're huge. They are I think they're 45 feet long and like 11 feet a beam. They're big, and the reason they use them, they didn't use them for travel, but they used them for lightering freight from ship to shore, because there was no dock. You know, it was an anchorage. There has since been seawall and a dock and everything put in now, but up until the 80s, that's how you had to come ashore. The 1980s, yeah, you had to hop aboard this skin boat and come up to the landing and climb out. And so there were always, during the early years, there were always these 3 bidars sitting upside down on oil barrels, right? And the local kids were always, well, the locals talked about when they were kids, that's where they would all go. They would go climb up inside of them and smoke. And when they saw grown-ups coming, they'd pull their feet up as if the parents didn't know, right? But anyway, fun story. So you look on the bottom of the thwarts of these old bidars, and there's like kids' names carved in there. Yeah. So anyway, so I was, like I said earlier, I became the shop teacher at the high school, and always looking for cool projects. And what we decided to do one year, I teamed up with Edna Floyd Filimanoff, who is the cultural teacher from St. George, and she was working with us doing all the language side of things. But I took my class, and we brought the one bidar that was in the best shape. They were all collapsing at this point, right? They were like breaking and falling apart. But we grabbed the one that was in the best shape and brought it over near the school and started dismantling it. And we were just going to, replace every part that was broken or cracked. And we ended up having to replace the entire stem, the bow. I think it was 13 feet long. It was an entire spruce tree with a big root. I've got video of all that I'm getting archived through KUCB. And as soon as it gets digitized, I'm going to make sure the right people get it. But yeah, we rebuilt it, and It took the entire school year, and we had elders that used to work on the BIDARs, they call them back in the BIDAR days, stopping in all the time and like telling us how the lashings should be, and got that thing, the frame is completely rebuilt, and it's stored inside. What happened is we were gonna skin it with canvas, which is how they did it in the later years. They used real heavy canvas, and then they would boil up a bunch of beeswax, turpentine, and linseed oil, get it hot, and then it would saturate and mop it onto the skin. And we were gonna do that, and ended up, our sewing machine didn't work, and all that kind of stuff. So it's stored. It's like, and in the meantime, all the other ones have disintegrated beyond repair. There is actually one more broken one stored inside. But the ones on St. George, they had 3, I think theirs are goners. And but there are 2 that managed to survive. So lately I've been telling them, like, why aren't we getting a skin on that, right? With all this other stuff going on, let's finish, yeah. Brooke, did you have a question?
Many years ago, I saw a video of you guys steam bending a really large piece. Was that the bow that you're talking about? Did you steam bend the bow, or was
Yeah, I've got that on that video too.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great to see it again. No, what we had to do, this was a really fun project. The gunnels the gunnel being the rail that goes around, you guys all know what gunnels are, huh? Fishing village. But on the BIDAR, these things are 3 inches in diameter oak. From the government days, that's what they were using, right? And they had some of that stockpiled in the warehouses and stuff. But we had to bend like a 6-foot radius on this humongous bow. And I had to, it was so big, I had to create my own steam box. And so I built this huge, I forget, it was probably 16 feet long steam box, and I had to generate just a ton of heat. So I went to the car dump, and I got an old boiler, and I went out to the spot where the ships used to offload coal, and I dug out a bunch of coal, and I dug a pit, and I got a blower blowing into it. Anyway, it's really cool. We were able to make this humongous steam box, and we rehearsed. There was like 6 of us. It's like, okay, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna clamp, and because you have to move fast when you're bending something, right? You can't sit there and figure it out. And yeah, so we were able to bend this humongous piece of oak. Yeah. Anyway, that was fun. And anyway, any other questions? How am I doing for time?
You have 15-ish minutes.
Oh, okay. You guys getting bored yet? You better come up with some questions. So, I know what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, okay, that's all the past. That's how we got to where we are right now with all of this. And it's going great. Like I'm feeling really good about it. We've got apprentices taking over, and we've got a lot of things documented. With KUCB's help, we've got actually all the steps of building an Iqyax on a very boring DVD, but it's there. And and that's my goal, is to kind of like not have, the next wave of builders, I want them to have this as a jumping off point, because there's just still so much more to learn. But in the future, what I look forward to seeing out here is I want to see a younger set of builders, of course, taking over, making it real, keeping it going, using them, and I want to see. I would love to see like a boathouse down by the water, so that boats get stored in a usable location, so that when the wind dies down and the sun comes out, that's not the time to go break away from what you're doing and go dig your kayak out from the crawl space under your house or whatever, It's always better if it's just there, ready to go, so that it becomes part of the day-to-day culture again. So that's one part of my personal vision for the future. I also think that it would be really nice to have a very accessible communal workspace where these things can happen without it having to be on such a time is money timeline, right? And so that's another, I'm talking about my personal goals, right? What would mean a lot to me to see. And then another thing that I think would be sort of a next step that I'm looking forward to happening, and there have been a lot of conversations, some of them with Ginny and Kale. Kale Brunner is a Paleolithic tools expert, and has actually come to my shop, and we've tried napping tools, and we're trying to figure out how to use tools, and we're looking at all the procedures, the types of joinery that happen in the building of these vessels, and like how would you make it? Look, there's Patty's giving me moose horns there. But I would love to see these vessels get built using the old tools, because I can't even wrap my head around how that was able to happen. You know, I've tried experimentally to just try to do some of that joinery, and I can't do it, you know, and I understand wood pretty well, you know, and yeah, it's just baffling to me. And then you look at the parts, you know, in the museum, and you look at these parts that were made with those stone tools, and I couldn't do any better with all of my super razor sharp steel tools. I couldn't. Yeah, and it's just baffling to me. So I'd like to explore that, and then also using real skin. I think we're going to learn a lot when we're actually using real skin. We don't know what we don't know yet, right? And so that motivation that I had when I saw that first King Island kayak, when I was longing to feel it on the water, that's only going to come true in its fullness when we're using real skin, because real skin it just behaves entirely differently than fabric. Yep.
Were the stone tools made of obsidian? It's really sharp.
Yeah, some tools were obsidian, and I've seen a toolkit from Atka, and a lot of it is this. It's not obsidian. Obsidian is very brittle, and it's very when it's flaked, it's good for, like, you know, separating blubber from skin and that sort of thing, cutting skin. But a lot of the woodworking was done with this. I want to say that it's basalt. It's like a really hard basalt. I'm looking at
I think
Ginny for
they're using both basaltic andesites and then jaspers.
Oh, okay. Oh, jasper flakes like obsidian,
They're
kind
pretty
of,
tough.
right?
Yeah, but they're stronger and
Yeah, not as
not
brittle.
quite glass-like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're and some of the tools are polished. They polish an edge on it. There's one out there that it's an adze blade, and it feels like, and it's really sharp, but it feels like it was ground, and it almost feels like jade. But I know it's probably not jade, but it's like a greenish,
That's
very.
jasper.
Is it jasper? Oh, okay. Yeah. And then a lot of abrading. You'll find these like rectangular pumice of varying grits, right? With grooves worn in them for like polishing stringers, say, or a 90-degree groove in it for tuning up a gunnel, say, right? And yeah, it's amazing. I've used all those tools, and they really work. And but the biggest mystery that we have right now is how do you cross-cut a very accurate joint, right? How do you, like cross-cutting wood, like creating, okay, this is an agua. This is a deck beam, And it's made from driftwood. The grain runs right through it, and that's what makes it so strong. But they're all fitted, like that's a tenon in woodworking terms. That tenon mates into a hole in the gunnel, and then it gets lashed here. But how in the world would you cut that? How would you cross cut? I use a Japanese pull saw with, I don't know, like 30 teeth per inch. It's like some really fine cutting, precise tool to do this. And like, how did Unangax people 9,000 years ago do this? Right? Or 200 years ago, before they had started finding steel or whatever from the shipwrecks, you know? I have no idea. But the pieces are right there, right? In that drawer. You look at them, and to be honest, theirs are better looking than mine. Yeah, theirs are smoother and more perfectly shaped. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's, I'd like to see that happen, and I think it will happen. The first person who actually pulls that off, it's going to be, everyone's going to be paying attention, we all talk about it. It's time to do it. Anybody else have a question? Anything? Want to talk about something else? But anyway, you probably all know that we find a lot of our wood on the beach, right? We try to. I feel like you know, that's the best way to start the whole process. And I've had younger techie type people get excited about, oh yeah, the future of kayak building is going to be digitally printing those. And I'm like, baloney, right? Like to me, it's not about having it; it's about the journey. And like your vessel should if it starts with a day of beachcombing, that's a good start.
So I'm curious, because you've been in multiple open boats. How did this one feel?
Well,
And is that even a reasonable question?
it is. I'm just realizing this is going to go out to all the other people who
Oh.
yeah. No, it's
Well, we
good.
could-
No.
It's gonna be all fun.
But no, I'm not afraid to say this one is the best one yet. And it's because we learn every time, right? And like I said, I started the first one in Anchorage. We didn't know anything. We're just looking at the pictures in the books. And I'd been thinking about it for decades, so I had some ideas about how to do it. It's been, I dreamed about it forever. But and then coming out and going to Atka and then getting more information at the museum from those ribs that we found. Every single one that got built, we improved, right? What happened is we had actually managed to build 3 of them before we launched any of them. And that was in Sandpoint. And what we found on launch day is that it was really tippy, because these things, basing them on that old drawing, they're very narrow and tippy, and they're meant to carry tons of cargo, right? And tons of people. If you look at them, the old drawing, the thwarts, the seats are way up high. All that space beneath was for probably, just the stuff of life, whatever you needed to bring with you. And when you weigh a boat down, it stabilizes it, right? Gets the center of that gravity down low, gets the water line up where it's wider. And anyway, yeah, so in Sandpoint, it was a panic moment. Here I am, this guy that's coming out to do this project, and we're all piling in, we got 15 people in there. We're afraid to let go of the dock because it feels like it's gonna roll over. They ended up, the people at Peter Pan Seafoods were helping us launch, and they asked us, they have these 500-pound blocks of lead that they use to calibrate their scales. And they said, hey, you want one of those? And we're like, yes. So they hoisted one into the boat for us, and that was better. They said, you want another? Like, yes. Want another? Want another? We took 4 of them. We took a ton. And then we took 15 people. And we just boogied out there. We were with all that weight, the thing scooted right along. And we were way out in the bay there, and we were like trying to decide if we were gonna go across to Unga. But we turned around and came back. But anyway, what we learned that time is that we need to, I needed to like try to get the floors widened out. That's the floor chines on a boat, here's the keel, here's that first bend, right? Push that out, flare the sides. When you flare your sides, that gives you stability. So I think, a few boats later, just before I came out here, it must have been April or something, I was in King Cove, and that community was building a Nigawa. And I widened everything out about as far as I thought I dared. And we ended up paddling that around with 28 kids on board with no ballast. So that is the secret, And I should probably do a shout out to the late Mitch Poling. He's one of my mentors I've learned from. I've got notes from him on my phone where I look back at them now, and he was adamant. He kept saying, you've got to have the flare. You got to put the flare really hard, because he had toyed around with it too. They have a different version where he's from, but his words came back to me, And anyway, coming out here this time, the one that we just launched, I pushed those floors out another 3 inches and flared the sides even harder. So I feel like this vessel is the best one that we've built. Like it could stand some ballast, but it doesn't need it. People were thinking it felt tippy, but that's just because it has an initial tenderness. But
Can you show us some pictures?
oh, you like this one? Yeah. I wish this thing could just scroll. That's I think that ended up being the one that Vince has. That is in Kachemak Bay, actually. I worked for Agayo Wilderness Education one year. That's some of the, that's just the agavan being made. Those are all made from driftwood crooks, and those are the tools we use to make them.
Quick question about the materials, Mark.
Yeah.
When you're finding materials, obviously cedar and so forth you're looking for, but other types of woods that you find and use for your builds?
Yeah, and and basically what washes up usually is the right stuff. And you know what I should do? I'm going to pass this around. This is actually, I brought that with, so that's Humboldt County redwood. This is some spruce from out here somewhere. That's the bow. That's what we carved the bow out of. They call it the chungi. And those are agavan, the deck beams. But if you look at it, you see the grain running through there. This is, there's the tree going up, and there's the root. Roots are really strong, and plus, just with the way the grain runs through there, you can picture if that's the front of a boat, and it comes in and makes impact, it's not gonna crack across there, right? So So that's why when we're out beachcombing, we have in our mind, we have shapes we're looking for, and we usually actually hike with a pattern. Like for the Agadan, it's a very specific angle, and so we just like hold it up on the piece, and if it's right, then we haul it out.
Mark,
Yeah.
so the pieces that you looked at in the museum, could you tell what kind of wood had been used?
Yeah, I think it was spruce. Yeah, there's a lot of spruce out here. It was really, really hard, tight-grained spruce. Very, actually still, I think, I don't know if it felt oily, but you could tell it was still oily, you know? I think they work a lot of seal fat into it, and that's probably why it was so well preserved. That's Sam. She's my first apprentice, Samantha Zahara, St. Paul. That's in, where is that? I want to say that's at, so just a bunch of pictures. They're beautiful. Every time there's a frame in front of me, I can't take enough pictures, right? They're so beautiful. Jordy, another apprentice. What's her name? Eleanor. Urban Unangax culture camp. Oh, and there's it's like Father Yvonne blessing a couple of newly finished vessels out in front of Margaret's Bay. Shayla, Leah, that's my wife. She's the other half of Make Access. She does all the boring, hard stuff, and then I come up and have all the fun. That's down on Humboldt Bay. We get out whenever we can. Haley Hanna, Stepton, she's been down for the apprenticeship. She's from Akitan. Anyway, yeah, just that looks like up on St. Paul there. Oh yeah, we had a big push. We were building doubles to go on tribal journeys. I don't think we slept much at all. So anyway, just a lot of boat building pictures. You all know what that is. Oh, and then this. Oh, good. Yeah, this should have come up first, but I do want to thank all these entities. There's probably people I've forgotten, and I apologize for that, but I want to thank the Kawalungan tribe for welcoming me, Unalaska Corporation for always, stepping in and helping us every piece of equipment we ever need. They always are there for us. The Aleut Foundation sponsors the students to come down for the apprenticeship. So that's a nice relationship. At this point, they've seen what's happening and they help us just about every time. APIA has done a lot in getting me out to different communities. The Agnes Larson Darnell Scholarship. Agnes Larson was born on St. Paul and was one of the California Unangax, and she's passed away, but she left a scholarship fund, and they donate to our Make Access Iqyax apprenticeships every year because they value their scholarship being used that way. So we really appreciate them. And the daughter of Agnes Larson, her name's Lauren Peters, and I think she's on the board of PNAC, and she's the founder of Alaska Natives Day at Fort Ross. So very active person. Let's see here. Rural Cap, do you want to say anything about that, Thomas?
I believe they're one of the sponsors are one of the supporters of the Nigalook bill here.
Oh, well, thank you, Rural Cap. And then KUCB is just always documenting and everything that we do and archiving it. So thank them for that. Unalaska City School District, because we use their shop and they help us out many ways. Museum of the Aleutians for all the stuff I was talking about earlier. And Moses Dirks for everything language related. He's always there for me. And then I turn to Jeff Dickerell pretty often. You guy's an amazing historian. I just wanted to mention his name. You know, he doesn't live on the island anymore, but he pays close attention. And he's, whenever I'm a good builder, but I'm not a historian. And whenever I have a history question, he's on it. He gets me information. And then the Ink People Center for the Arts, that's a foundation up in Humboldt County that sponsors our 501c3. So we are a dream maker. So the Make Access Iqyax Apprenticeships is a dream maker project of the Ink People. So really wonderful group to work with, and they're doing a lot of great work in our area, and we couldn't do this without them. So, and thank everyone in the room for being interested and coming out today. And I think I'll let Thomas wrap it up. Unless would you guys have any more questions? Anything you want to talk about? Jim?
Is there any possibility down the road, maybe you're hoping that an exact one may yet be found, like in the mud in Bering Sea, left over from the Marines yet?
Boy, that would be cool. You know, I know like Rick Connect is finding 400 and 600-year-old items that were buried in an anaerobic state at Unangax, the site up on the, where is that one, Jack? Is that on the Kuskokwim?
It's near Quinnahock.
But anyway, there was a mudslide that covered these homes, and the stuff they're pulling out are textile, they're painted wood, and they're that old, but they're coming out like completely, you know, with their paint and all, you know, the fabric is still flexible. So yeah, it could happen
Some boats we found in Wisconsin, like 3,000 years old.
at the bottom of the lakes, right? Yeah, right.
I believe in Hakodate, there's a Aleutian kayak, Ulokton, that is in the museum there in Hakodate, the Museum of Northern Peoples
Is that in Japan?
in Japan.
Right.
And it was, I believe that it was taken from Attu along with some slaves or prisoners in the 1700s.
Yeah, I know that. I know that Ulukton. Yeah, in fact, we replicated it on St. Paul.
Okay.
It's a really strange looking one. It's got the really,
I have some
Tall
pictures of it. I've
belt.
seen
Yeah.
it there in the museum.
yeah, and that's actually my hope too. You know, we don't have full access to Russia. Like even Unangax people who have gone there asking for permission to see certain things have been denied. So my hope is that there might be items somewhere over there that can reveal some of the secrets for us. No? Oh, I thought he was grabbing the hook to pull me off stage. I like this microphone thing and captive audience. But yeah, so yeah, without, if you don't have any more questions, then I'll just let you guys get on with your day. But thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Really love this subject.
All right, thank you everyone once again for coming out today. As I mentioned, I'll be doing some editing, and then this will be on YouTube later on if you want to come back and rewatch it, revisit it. With that said, we do have a couple other programs coming up this month. On the Fairy Day next weekend. No, actually, next weekend is part of the Aleutians and then the Fairy Day. Anyway, on the Fairy Day, we'll be having a hands-on museum. I pull out some of the teaching collections. I guess Ginny will be pulling out some of the teaching collections. So you can actually see and handle some of the artifacts you might not be able to see on a regular basis. We will also be at Heart of the Aleutians. So come out, check out the booth there. We'll have a couple activities set up for mostly kids, but also adults. And then next month, we do not have a date set yet, but the speaker will be Ellis Berry. He wants to talk about something with cybersecurity. So once again, the Lunch and Learn program is pretty much a space for community members to give a talk. So if there is a subject that you're passionate about that you want to talk about with the community, please feel free to reach out and we'll try to set you up for a future date. I believe we have through October booked, but I am looking for winter speakers. So as always, please feel free to reach out, or if you know anyone, encourage them to do so. But with that, I'll say thank you once again and have a wonderful day.